Hello, everyone. I'm engagement editor John A. Torres, and we're here with the Democratic primary candidates for the 8th U.S. congressional seat, currently held by U.S. Representative Bill Posey. We're bringing you the forum ahead of the August Democratic primary. The winner will face Posey in November. He will be seeking his 8th two-year term, and we hope to bring you another forum with him and the winner of this race closer to that race. It's my absolute pleasure today to introduce Danelle Dodge and Joanne Terry. And welcome, ladies. Hello, and thank you for being here. And we're going to give you each 90 seconds to make an opening remark. Maybe something about your background, what makes you qualified to serve. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and then we'll alternate questions after that, back and forth. So we'll start with Danelle. Welcome, and your opening statement, please.
Great. Well, thank you for having me here today, and good afternoon. I am Danelle Dodge. I am running for Florida's 8th Congressional District. We are at an impasse. While families are struggling to keep a roof over their head and food in their pantries, we have politicians more worried about scoring political points than people. I'm running because we need to put people over politics. I am not a politician. I am a small business owner, a mother. I supported the mission of the U.S. Navy for 10 years as a military spouse. My experience is broad and unique. I have served my community at public schools, hospitals, and the local library. We need a leader that walks the talk, thinks outside the box, and finds ways to shine a light on our community to ensure our people see tangible benefits from their votes and tax dollars. I am that leader. I will take the $1 million that our current representative touts he gave back to the U.S. Treasury and use it for customer service and advocacy here, providing real connections between the local community, local government, and federal government. All politics really are local, and focusing on what we can get done at home will improve the lives of everyone in District 8. We must also keep the doors of opportunity open for the next generation. I am proud to be endorsed by the Florida Young Democrats and Florida College Dems. They are the future of Florida. We must also not forget that the sacrifices of generations that have come before, making sure that every person is treated with dignity and respect. The value of people must be our most important priority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Danelle. And now, Joanne Terry, your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you very much for having us today and for this opportunity. I'm Joanne Terry. I'm a retired satellite systems engineer, a previous board member of the League of Women Voters of the Space Coast, and I've lived in the Satellite Beach area for about 18 years. I entered this race last November to bring together the people of this district from across the political spectrum that are fed up with the obstructionism, the extremism, and the bad behavior, especially recent bad behavior in our politics, and just wants government to get stuff done. So my platform starts with issues that we can all agree we urgently need to address, like making sure that our explosive economic growth doesn't destroy our environment or leave our residents behind, and working to alleviate the anger and profanity in our neighborhoods that is designed to keep us divided. I have already shown that there is grassroots support for my campaign by getting all of my petitions signed by voters from across the political spectrum. So I will continue to unite this district so that we can win in November, that we can make progress on the areas where we do agree, and that we can build our relationships with each other again so that we can work on bipartisan solutions to our more contentious issues from a place of civility and respect that is required for a healthy, functioning democratic republic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, ladies. Well said by both of you. We are going to start now with Joanne, and then we will alternate back and forth, okay? And you each have 1 minute for your responses here. Joanne, if elected, what would be your day one priority?
Well, my day one priority will depend a lot on what happens between now and January. I'm very happy to see what they're doing right now with the bipartisan election integrity bill in the Senate. I also want to work very hard on ensuring that we commit to the long-term plan for the Indian River Lagoon. And that includes our infrastructure and ensuring that we have the dollars down here to upgrade our infrastructure to support our growth and also support the 21st century water treatment plant that we have studies and proposals going on for right now. I also want to deal with the affordable housing crisis. I really want to sit at the table with our local and state government officials and organizations and make sure that we have access to and are utilizing every federal lever available.
Great, thank you. And we will have some follow-up questions on some of those items that you touched in a second. Now on to you, Danelle. What would your day one priority be?
Thank you. My day one priority is the people of District 8. And what I mean by that is we need to start here at home. All politics, like I said, is really local. And so I want to be getting together with local people and finding out how we can make our office a place of community and unity. And the way that we're going to do that is bring in constituent services like we haven't had before here in Brevard and Indian River and East Orange. And what I want to do is, get us a grant advisor to help small businesses and nonprofits here in the area. I want to shine a light on those things that are happening in the community that make our community great, but also the things that we need to work on. We need a liaison for healthcare, for veterans. We have so much work to do here locally, and it's important what we do up in Washington, but it's even more important what we do here, because there's only one congressperson here, but there's 500 and something up in Washington.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question, we will start with you, Danelle. A lot has been said, obviously, and written about, and I think Joanne mentioned it earlier, about election integrity these last few years. What are your thoughts on the topic and on recent legislation that some have called restrictive when it comes to voting rights and all that?
Well, I think a lot of what's gone on with election fraud talk is that it's talk. We know that the 2020 election was the most secure election that we have had, and that the results were accurate. We've had a lot of people that have tried to put out the big lie, including our current representative, Bill Posey, and stoke fear that our elections are not safe and not secure. Now, we do need to worry about outside interference from foreign adversaries, and we need to make sure that our digital, the messaging that's coming through through platforms and things like that is not affecting our elections. But as far as actual voter fraud, it's very minimal. And so the laws that are being passed now are just restricting voters, not being able to have food and water in line, not being able to have your mail ballot counted, or you have to reapply for your mail ballot every other year instead of every election cycle, things like that, that are keeping people that are disabled and seniors, making it more difficult for them to vote.
Okay, thanks, Danelle. Joanne, the same question.
Sure. So there are so many aspects of election integrity that we need to deal with. And I include in that campaign finance reform, cybersecurity, ballot access, and unfortunately, the disinformation campaigns out there that are meant to not just sway our vote, but to also get us to distrust our elections. And that's really dangerous. In this country, we have truth in advertising laws that protect our money from fraud, but we don't have any laws that protect our vote from fraud. And if our democracy is going to survive, we have to at least value our vote as much as we value our money. So I think we need to address this from all angles, including putting in some disclosure laws and doing a huge public education campaign so people know how to digest the kind of social media and media information that's there. And there's a lot of work to do, and I definitely want to tackle that problem.
Great, thank you. And we're going to stay with you, Joanne, for this next question. Hot button topic, obviously. What was your reaction to the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding Roe versus Wade? And and mainly, how would you have voted on the legislation to protect access to abortion, including the right to travel across the state lines for abortion rights, to an abortion with strict limits, or in the cases of rape, incest, etc.?
Sure, absolutely. So to me, this whole argument about abortion is not about whether abortion is right or wrong. It's whether or it's what the role of the government should be in deciding what in a woman deciding what to do with her own body. I personally don't believe that the government should tell anybody what to do about with their body. But I mean, depending on what poll you look at, about 60% of Americans believe that Roe versus Wade should not have been overturned. But here in District 8, I think we have a lot of the other 40%. And I think as our representative here, we have to respect that. So in my opinion, Roe versus Wade was the compromise that we were able to live with for 50 years. So I was very concerned for a lot of reasons that that was overturned. And I'm very scared of what we're seeing across the country. So I would absolutely vote to codify Roe versus Wade. I want to make sure we do it in a bipartisan way, though, so that after the next election, it doesn't just get overturned.
Great. Same question for you, Danelle.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Your reaction to the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding Roe versus Wade, and how would you have voted on that legislation to protect access to abortion, including the right to travel across state lines, or in the cases of incest, rape, etc.?
Thank you. Okay, I would have absolutely voted yes on that legislation. We absolutely need to protect a woman's right to choose, a person's right to choose, and we need to be standing up for privacy rights, privacy over our own bodies, autonomy over our own bodies. If we don't have autonomy to make our own medical decisions, if we don't have autonomy to cross state lines, that's hitting a new boundary. I actually took a group from here in Brevard to Washington, D.C. to protest the draft decision of Roe versus Wade, and we were hoping that they might adjust at least the language. We didn't think they were going to stop from overturning it, but to at least adjust to the language, because the way that it is framed right now, based on the beliefs and faith of one group of people, does not represent all of us in America. More than 60% of people support Roe v. Wade, and we need to be standing up for the majority. And I will be standing with the majority, and I have done so in DC and here around the county. And I absolutely believe that that's a critical right.
Okay, thank you. We're going to stay with you here, Danelle, for this next question. In light of this decision, and even before that, some have called for Democrats to try and add seats to the Supreme Court. Are you in favor of that, and why or why not?
Yes, I am actually in favor of that, because I do think that we need to have a more fair court. We talk about court packing. The Republicans are actually the ones that have packed the court. They kept President Obama from filling a seat, and they put in another rep when Ruth Bader Ginsburg had barely passed away, when election was happening. And so that to me is packing the court. And I think we need to repair the court. We have 9 federal district. We had 9 federal district courts when we had 9 justices, and now we have 13. So I do believe we can get a more fair court by expanding that to encompass all 13 federal districts, as well as getting a court that's been appointed by more than just Republican presidents.
Great, thank you. And the same question for you, Joanne, about packing the court.
Sure. Well, I am also very concerned about the credibility of the Supreme Court. You know, the Supreme Court is our last word on interpreting the freedoms and liberties that we enjoy here under our Constitution. And now that the court has fallen to partisanship, there's really nothing to protect us other than the goodwill of the people who have sworn to uphold the Constitution. So I really want to see holding people like Mitch McConnell accountable for not having done his constitutional duty for allowing Senate hearings for Merrick Garland, and also to hold accountable the 2 Supreme Court justices that misled senators, and hold accountable the senators for not holding those justices accountable. So I agree that adding Supreme Court justices is a short-term solution or a near-term solution to correct the wrongs that have been done. But I would like to work for bipartisan, longer-term sustainable solutions like accountability and ethics for our Supreme Court justices, and relooking at lifetime terms.
Okay, thank you. No one issue, I think, has impacted us more this year than inflation. I can't go into the supermarket without dropping $100 every time I go in. What do you feel is at the root of this inflation, and how would you try to help address it? And I think we're starting with Joanne.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, there is no doubt that people are feeling the effects of inflation right now. But the good news is that inflation really is a byproduct of a really strong economy. And I think we're in a really unusual situation right now because we have supply side pressures and demand side pressures that were generated from COVID, and that we're still coming out of that and normalizing our economy. But we do need to have policies, both short-term solutions that help right now and long-term solutions to make our economy more resilient for things that come up in the future. So short-term things like enhancing and extending the child care tax credit, the school lunch program, dealing with affordable housing, and then longer term programs like transitioning to more clean energy economy so that we can reduce the demand and the dependency on oil, and also dealing with our tax code to ensure that our middle and working classes aren't overburdened, and also to work to reduce the deficit.
Great, thank you. Same question for you, Danelle, about inflation.
Yes, we're all feeling the pain of inflation, the struggle for, like you said, at the grocery store and at the gas pumps. And of course, one of the things that's been a big problem is price gouging. And we had a bill on the floor to address the price gouging by the oil companies, and our current representative voted no on that bill. We have a lot of people out there talking the talk about the ways that we need to correct this, and then voting no on the legislation and things that will help. So I would definitely be a proponent of doing things that are going to help now, not waiting till October for a gas tax break, or waiting for the future when we can fix things long term. We need to look at the short term solutions first. We do also need to address the oil situation in a bigger framework, and that is improving our electric infrastructure and all of our infrastructure for transportation and things like that, so that our dependency on oil is reduced and we don't get put into this box of being driven by the oil driving inflation in every other sector.
Okay, great, thank you. And we will stay with you here for this next question, Danelle. And I think one of you already mentioned this, but there's obviously the affordable housing crisis in Florida has hit this area very hard. What could you do as a U.S. representative to help address this issue?
I think what we can do is work together with the community and look at things that we can do federally to connect with the community. I was a part of the Brevard Justice Ministries meeting a few months ago, and the Nehemiah Action Assembly. And what that group is trying to do is 6 churches working together to raise $10 million for affordable housing here in Brevard County. And they invited every single county commissioner, and none of them showed up. There were no other politicians that showed up to address this. And I was there out of concern for the people here in our county. And they had everyone stand up in the room holding up their wages. And more than 40% of people in this county make less than the amount to afford a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. And so that's not doable. So I would work with groups like this, looking for grants, looking for other federal options of how we can support things that are already ongoing in the community to bring dollars and resources here and shine a light on what's needed here in our county.
Okay, thank you. Joanne, same question, the affordable housing crisis here.
Yeah, it's incredible how fast our prices are rising. Our rents, our property values are going up, utility bills are rising, property insurance premiums. You know, my mom depended on rent control after my father died, and I don't know that I would have been able to finish college or even high school had we not had some control. And I really do believe our economic growth here needs to be inclusive, not exclusive, of our young professionals, our working families, our seniors, and our veterans. So a couple of weeks ago, I was down at the State of the County address in Indian River County, and they were talking about how they can't count on their current federal representative, or our current federal representative. So I really do think it starts with showing up for our seat at that table with state and local government representatives and organizations, because there are a lot of things that we can do at the federal level, and like grants and direct assistance and incentives. And we need to make sure that we are utilizing every single one of them that's available.
Great, thank you. One of the other huge issues in this area, as we all know and have been hearing about for years and years, is the health of the Indian River Lagoon. What would be your plan to address, long-term, short-term goals in trying to repair the lagoon? And I think we're starting with Joanne this time.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, the Indian River Lagoon is no doubt in serious trouble. And even though the water quality is getting better, it's not good enough. And we need to have constant and sustainable pressure on getting the cleanup funded. I live here on the Grand Canal and I've seen the degradation, and it's a very personal issue for me. So I did spend some time down with the National Estuary Program last week. And I think the number one thing that we need to do is commit to and fund the comprehensive 20-year plan to actually get control of the sources and the cleanup and the funding that's needed to do everything, including our infrastructure changes, including education, to make sure that people aren't putting the chemicals and the the grass clippings and doing what we need to do living here on the canal as well. So I think we need to do it from all angles, and it needs to be comprehensive, and it needs to be a long-term commitment.
Okay, thank you. Same question for you, Danelle. The health of the Indian River Lagoon.
Yes, the health of Indian River Lagoon is so important. And the reason is because it impacts our economy, it impacts our housing values. Nobody wants to live on the Indian River Lagoon if it's full of muck and dead manatees. So the federal government, we need to step up and work with the EPA, and our representative, and I will as a representative, be working on that to make sure that we don't just have the funding, but we know where the funding is going. I went to a Marine Resource Council meeting, and I spoke with some folks from the Indian River Lagoon, Save Our Indian River Lagoon, the Citizens Oversight Committee. And their concerns were that, we need to make sure that where the funds are going, that we know what's happening with the money, and that people feel confident that it is making a difference for the lagoon. So we want to make sure that people are informed of these projects and that we support those projects. I also think we need to work on the infrastructure, and we can do that through federal infrastructure money for our water treatment systems and plans all around the county to make sure that we're not having sewage leaked out into the lagoon.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate you both really keeping to that 1 minute. It's really helpful to me. So thank you. We're going to go a little international now with this next question. I'm going to start with you, Danelle. How do you think the current administration has handled the war in Ukraine, and would you urge the president to do something differently?
I think that we have been working hard to support the people of Ukraine, and that it was important to do so because they are fighting for their democracy, and they are holding the line of democracy for the entire world right now. We cannot afford to let Russia take over Ukraine and get onto the borders of other NATO countries that will put us into a war. I think that we need to address and assess and make sure that we are focused on objectives and goals and what those are. Sometimes when we move out into these kind of actions, our goals aren't clear. And so I think that the Biden administration needs to inform the people and let us know clearly what those goals are so that we know that we can support that mission in good faith. And I do think that the driving up of the gas prices has, due to the war, has affected us, the entire country, and that it's important for us to understand that that won't be long-term, and hopefully that our support of Ukraine will be the support of that democracy needs worldwide.
Okay, thank you. Joanne, same question, the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking to watch Vladimir Putin just kill innocent civilians and destroy the civilian infrastructure there. And it's really a stark reminder. World War II was only 80 years ago. And in fact, I think there's something like 220,000 World War II veterans still alive today. And it's a clear reminder that there are still authoritarian forces in the world, in Russia, but also in China and North Korea, that are watching to see what happens. And we must continue to be a global leader in protecting world peace and the liberal democracies that our World War II veterans and families sacrificed so much for. So I am also in favor of continuing to support the war in Ukraine to ensure that Russia does not succeed in this expansionist attempt, because if we let this happen, then it's going to continue around the world. And before you know it, we're going to be in big wars that are much more expensive and costly, both in lives and money.
Okay, great. We are going to stay with you, Joanne, here, sort of in the same vein. What do you think is the greatest, threat that is facing the U.S. right now, internally and externally?
I actually believe the greatest threat that is facing our country right now is our internal division. and extremism and the disinformation campaigns and pitting us against each other. And the reason it's the biggest threat right now is because we can't come together to face our other threats, whether they come, from climate or from external forces. And we, as Americans, we have historically always been able to band together to fight our enemies, internal and external. And I really think that we need to figure out bipartisan ways to defeat the internal extremism, get everybody back together as Americans so that we can work together for our common goals.
Great, thank you. Same question for you, Danelle. The greatest threats facing the U.S. internally and externally?
I think our greatest threat internally is if we don't have accountability, and we need to make sure that we're holding folks accountable for not just their votes, but their actions up and down, that we can't have a democracy if we don't have rule of law. And we've been watching the January 6th hearings, and we know that here in Brevard County that we had more people than anywhere else arrested for participating in the insurrection at the Capitol. So I believe that we need to make sure that everyone from the very bottom to the top is held accountable. Otherwise, we won't have a democracy. And external, I would say, worldwide, is the environment, is climate change, is the threat to the planet. And we're seeing that right now with these exorbitant temperatures in Europe and all across our own country. And places aren't prepared, roads buckling, their infrastructure, people dying because they don't have air conditioning and things like that. So flooding, we saw the collapse of the Surfside condominium. So we know here in Florida that climate change is going to be affecting us very directly, and we need to address that immediately.
Great, thank you. I have some great news for you. I'm done with my questions. You've made it off the hot seat. Now you each get 1 minute to just tell voters why we should vote for you. So I think we're starting with Joanne this time. Why should we vote for you?
Okay, well, again, thank you very much for having us today. So the reason that you should vote for me is because I am working to unite this district. I really want to attract the swing voters that are also disgusted by the extremism and the obstructionism so that we can drive hate and extremism out of our district. I think we need to work towards bipartisan solutions to our problems so that things don't just get overturned the next time that we have an election or we have a new president. When I'm elected in Congress, I intend to join the New Democrats coalition, the Get Things Done coalition, so that we can work to heal our division and really get our democracy functioning and strong again so that we can face all of these challenges together as a nation.
Great, thank you. And your closing remarks, Danelle, why should we vote for you?
Thank you. Well, I want to say that, bipartisanship is wonderful when bipartisanship works, and we have to have bipartisanship that's happening in good faith. And right now we don't have that. We don't have Republicans coming to the table in good faith and voting for the things that the majority of America wants. And so I'll say that now is the time for strength, conviction, visibility, and action. We have kids getting slaughtered at school, a Supreme Court that has taken away women's rights over their own bodies with their sights on marriage equality and voting rights. We have too many working Americans living in poverty, one paycheck away from being homeless, and a Republican plan to take away Social Security and Medicare. The status quo has got to go. We have too many that have sat in Congress for too long, and they are comfortable with big donors and have lost sight of their actual jobs. I am the only candidate in this race to have signed a term limits pledge because we all know a 2-year job was never meant to last a lifetime. If you want true representation, a leader that shows up, who leads by example, and never to receive another form letter in response to your concerns, vote Danelle Dodge for Congress on August 23rd. To learn more about what we can do together, visit votedodge.com. Your district needs you.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies. On behalf of Florida Today and our friends at Eastern Florida State College and the voters, we'd like to thank both Danelle Dodge and Joanne Terry for being here. And remember, August 23rd, get out there and vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.